Yourself if you can, Mr. Delegate Arentz. I'd appreciate that. We're going to be calling our first bill is House Bill 40. Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I apologize. I guess for this bill we also have delegates Hill, Kipke, and Tavares from the House Health and Government Operations. They're watching you.
Would you prefer I call a panel up with me or after?
You can go ahead and throw it, unless you have a specific panel that because you can't handle the bill on your own, which I think you can.
Right.
We'll just call them in the order we have.
Perfect.
Thank you.
First of all, it's nice to see you all in person again. So good afternoon. For the record, Delegate Jared Solomon presenting HB 40. And this is actually a bill that, that your committee has heard before. So I'm really glad to be back and appreciate the really helpful and thoughtful work that we've done on this. So for those of you who are new to the committee, welcome, and happy to present this again. So to start off, I just want to make it clear that, so we're talking about single occupancy restrooms, and a single occupancy bathroom is one that is fully enclosed, contains only one toilet or urinal, and has a door that locks. So, you know, what you would have at a hotel or on an airplane. That is a single occupancy bathroom. We're not talking about a bathroom that has multiple stalls in it. We're just talking about, again, a hotel bathroom, an airplane bathroom, the bathrooms that we have off the chamber now. We have them all over the place, and again, using the hotel bathroom and the airplane restroom, they are unisex, meaning anybody of either gender can use them. So the whole point of this bill is to make sure that everybody gets the privacy and peace of mind when they use a public bathroom. Gender-neutral bathrooms provide a safe and welcoming space for all individuals, including those with disabilities and their caregivers, and you're going to hear an example of that in just a couple of minutes. Nursing mothers, seniors, parents of young children. They're open to all caregivers, providing easy access to those who they support, and again, protect all of our community members from harassment and allow parents the freedom to nurse and care for the bathroom needs of their small children. So we've got two small boys, but I know many of my fellow fathers who have girls. Which bathroom do you go into if you have to take your child to the bathroom? If you are a nursing mother and you're nursing a child of you're nursing a boy, which bathroom do you go into? Do you have necessarily changing tables in the men's room if you have a young child that you need to take it into? If we're at a restaurant and there's two bathrooms and there's a line on both, regardless of gender, wouldn't it be easier to just use the other bathroom if, again, it's that single stall, like an airplane bathroom or a hotel room, and you need to use it? So basically what our bill does is requires that if you have one of those types of restrooms, the sign is literally just a picture of a toilet or the word bathroom and is not gender specific. So anybody of either gender can use the restroom. Again, making it easy as possible for, for caregivers, people with disabilities, parents, our LGBTQ community as well. This is something that's not new. So in our state alone, the largest jurisdictions already have this on the books. Baltimore City passed this in 2019. Salisbury and Howard County both passed these 2 or 3 years ago unanimously. Last session we were joined by Mayor Day, who's now obviously the housing secretary, or the designated housing secretary, but he was here to testify in support of this, and we'll be joined by the Salisbury City Administrator. Montgomery County has it on the books. States like Nevada, New Jersey, Illinois, all have it. Rhode Island recently passed it as well. So we're not doing anything really radical here. We're just kind of updating best practices, and we're updating language that's actually in the plumbing code from 2021. These new signs can be purchased for literally as little as $15. And just to expand on a couple of pieces that are in the bill, there is a penalty. So the enforcement of this would be done under local county government. The first offense is a warning. We're not interested in playing gotcha with any businesses. So you get, after your warning, you get 30 days to replace the sign. Then you can be fined up to $100 for the first for the violation after the warning, or up to $250 for the second. Again, it's up to. There is no money-making scheme in this. Whatever fine is ultimately levied, if ever needed, would just go to the actual enforcement of it. But again, we've worked very closely, and you'll see in the testimony that's been submitted with both the Retailers Association and the Restaurant Association, they both are fine with this bill. There's no opposition to it from either of those organizations, and we've worked very closely over the last 2 years to make sure that they are comfortable with the language that's in there. They're comfortable with what's in the bill, and have been great partners actually to work with. So again, I would hope that we could get to a place with a favorable report on HB 40, and really happy to take any questions that any of you may have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no questions, we're going to call the first group of individuals. We have Ed Zareski, Alan Richardson, Laura Howell, and Maureen Van Stone.
And Mr. Chair, I should have mentioned, we had two witnesses who were signed up that unfortunately both had emergencies. One had an emergency business trip and a family emergency. It's Vince Culata from Cured in Columbia County and Andy Shalal, who's the owner of Busboys and Poets, both to testify, and they unfortunately can't be here, but we will share their testimony at a later point.
What were those names again?
Vince Culata and Andy Shalal from Busboys and Poets.
Okay, they're not on here, that's fine.
They may have already been taken off, but just wanted to make sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
And a brief question from one of our delegates from HGO, Delegate Kipke. How would this apply to family bathrooms?
Delegate Kipling, you mean family bathrooms like within a restaurant or a public place?
Of course.
Family bathrooms, like in the mall, are designated family. It's a little bit bigger, it accommodates families.
Yeah, so this would actually have no impact on that. So as long as a family bathroom is already open to anyone of either gender, and would be totally fine. And those signs are already grandfathered in. They wouldn't need to be changed either.
So family bathroom signs already grandfathered in?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, this only applies to a bathroom that is essentially just a single occupancy, one toilet.
Well, a lot of those are. A lot
Yep.
of family bathrooms are.
Yep.
Okay. Another question from Delegate Hill.
Delegate, there's the opposition, but there's favorable with amendment. If we could make an adjustment, because right now it is required that the gender-specific bathrooms count against a base number. They made a suggestion that they could still count towards one or the other or both. You've read it.
I was going to say, yeah, Delegate Hill, thank you for the question. We were actually we were just having that conversation with the gentleman who's going to be testifying. We talked to the American Institute of Architects, and there's a letter in there in the testimony as well. They have a slightly different view. We're totally open to that change. It would not affect the implementation of the bill. We just want to make sure it's right, because again, this has been on the books now for 4 largest jurisdictions in the state. We want to make sure whatever we need to do, it's appropriate, but we're going to work that out. Thank you for raising that.
I believe there are no further questions. Next person testified is Ed Zareski.
Close enough.
Thank you.
Hi, delegates. I'm Ed Zakreski. I'm the managing director of Roundhouse Theater in Bethesda. In 2019, Roundhouse opened our renovated theater, and when we designed the signage for the renovation, we made the values-based decision to label our single occupancy restroom as a family restroom, with a further explanation that our restrooms are available to everyone regardless of their gender expression or identity. Since that time, we have had multiple patrons express their gratitude for this signage and have not had a single complaint. Just about every business covered by this bill is a business dependent on customers. That means our revenues, our success, is dependent on creating an environment that is welcoming, safe, and accepting for our patrons. The more people we make happy, the better it is for our bottom line. This is about the easiest, least expensive action that can be taken to provide a more welcoming environment to a large number of people. It's not just the right thing to do ethically, it's simply good business, all for the cost of a couple signs. Moreover, as the proud father of a transgender son, I can personally attest to the anxiety and sometimes fear that trans people encounter when forced to use gendered restrooms. There are websites to help trans people navigate their personal safety when traveling to different states and identifying businesses that are safe locations. Passing this bill will provide much reassurance to a community that faces significant discrimination and marginalization. My son's at college, otherwise he'd be here to testify himself, but shared a statement. Since coming out as trans, the first time I have felt truly safe walking into a men's room without my father or brother was when I saw a sign which actively welcomed me to use the correct bathroom. Because not only did I know I was allowed in that restroom, but everyone else also knew that I was allowed there. There's a sense of security that still comes with being reassured that you'll be safe and protected if anything happens. That's why inclusive signage is important. I shouldn't have to fear using the restroom, and neither should anyone else.
Good afternoon, Chair Wilson and Vice Chair Crosby and members of the committee. My name is Alan Richardson, and I'm here today in support of this bill, the Open to All Act. I was fortunate to testify before this committee last year, and I'm honored to be back before you. I have resided in Maryland for over 70 years, and during that time, my wife, Sally, and I greatly enjoyed going out to dinner and attending both theater and music performances in venues throughout Maryland. Unfortunately, in recent years, Sally battled both dementia and severe loss of mobility. In spite of this, we continued to find great comfort in these outings. They gave us the chance to retain an important part of our former lives. But there were problems. At first, it was difficult for Sally, who had become easily confused, to manage trips into the ladies' room alone. I became uncomfortable allowing her to enter restrooms by herself because she would forget where she was. Then later, when she became wheelchair-bound, she was completely unable to manage without assistance. Often I had to decide whether to bring Sally into the men's restroom or to hire our daytime female caretaker for the evening to assist her. This added a layer of stress and expense to our evening that my wife and I did not need. These are not easy things to manage or discuss, but the Open to All Act would alleviate many of these problems by providing free access to all for single-use bathrooms. That would help us to manage by ourselves many of the problems that we experienced. In conclusion, we all want to be out enjoying events in Maryland, and it goes without saying that none of us want to worry about how to access a restroom, regardless of our sex or state of disability. I thank you for taking the time to consider this bill and ask for a favorable report.
Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the next witness, Laura Howe.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Laura Howe with the Maryland Association of Community Services, the Developmental Disability Provider Association in Maryland, and I'm here today representing the Developmental Disabilities Coalition in support of HB 40. There are over 90,000 adults and older children with developmental disabilities in Maryland, many of whom need assistance when they use the bathroom. They rely on paid caregivers and family members for that assistance, and often the caregiver may be someone of the opposite gender. House Bill 40 is a low-cost bill that removes any real or perceived barrier to using the bathroom when someone with a disability is relying on assistance from someone of the opposite gender. For all of the thousands of adults who use supports in the community, they work, they go out during the day, they shouldn't have to go home to use a bathroom that is accepting and comfortable for a caregiver of the opposite gender. We're also supportive of the requirement that signage for a single occupancy bathroom include a picture indicating its purpose. We believe that HB 40 takes a page from universal design by making a facility user-friendly for people with many different needs, including people with disabilities, and we urge a favorable report.
Seeing no questions, Maureen Van Stone.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wilson and committee members. My name is Maureen Vanstone, and I am the director of the Maryland Center for Developmental Disabilities at Kennedy Krieger Institute, which is Maryland's University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, Education, Research, and Service. I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony in favor of House Bill 40. My organization, Kennedy Krieger Institute, is dedicated to improving the lives of children and adults with developmental, behavioral, cognitive, and physical disabilities. Kennedy Krieger's services include inpatient, outpatient, school-based, and community programs like the Maryland Center for Developmental Disabilities. Our mission is to provide leadership that advances the inclusion of people with disabilities through pre-service preparation and training, research and evaluation, community service, and information dissemination. National data indicate that approximately 20% of the U.S. population is living with a disability. As a provider for individuals with disability, Kennedy Krieger feels strongly that all people deserve privacy and safety when using a public restroom. Gender-inclusive restrooms in public spaces are important for the patients, students, and the families whom we serve at Kennedy Krieger. A single occupancy public toilet is defined as a fully enclosed containing only one toilet and may be locked by the user. Often, the user of the restroom is an individual, child or adult with one or more disabilities who requires caregiver and/or direct support professionals to assist them with their toileting needs and assure privacy while being able to lock the bathroom door. In many instances, the caregiver or direct support professional is not the same gender as the person whom they are serving. Lastly, gender-inclusive signage will create both a pictorial representation and descriptive language such as restroom, bathroom, or toilet, which will be helpful to many individuals with disabilities across the state of Maryland. I urge a favorable report of House Bill 40 for gender-inclusive signage, and I appreciate your consideration of my testimony.
Thank you, ma'am. We have Delegate Pippy with a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the panel for being here. I guess maybe the delegate can answer this. So 2 points. So I have 2 young boys, and I find myself in many public accommodations where my wife, or myself, but if my wife particularly takes the 2 boys into, let's say, the women's bathroom. So like that scenario I get, right? You have and that may not be particularly applicable here because that's a larger bathroom, maybe not a single use, but obviously wife's a female, boys are boys, and they're all going in together. So I get that part. My question is, would this bill also prohibit, let's say, a single-use bathroom like we have here on this floor? So we have the larger bathrooms, and then by the elevators, there's a single-use bathroom on this level over there by the staff offices. So would it also prohibit, let's say, what we've seen in the past, and I'm no expert, but like a traditional male figurine and a female figurine? So like, would the bill prohibit both of those? Because in that scenario, that would almost include both scenarios. It wouldn't be a singled out like just a male figurine or a female, but like if there was a symbol that said and had both those on there, does it also prohibit that?
So the new code for new signs would be essentially just a picture of a non-gender specific sign. So it wouldn't have either a woman or man or both. It would just have a toilet or an icon or the words bathroom.
So no human figurines whatsoever would be permitted in this bill?
Correct. On new signs going forward. If those signs were already there, that's totally fine.
Okay. And so even if they had, because we talked about family bathrooms, like single use, so you couldn't have like several different shapes and sizes in a symbol. It just, there's no human figurines at all.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No further questions. Thank this panel. We have thank you guys. We have no further questions. We have 2 more in person, and then we're going to go to our virtual. We have Jamie Grace Alexander and Brian O'Looney.
Chairman, you called Ms. Alexander first. Do you want them to go, or they're not here? Shall I go?
If they're not, I have not seen them, so you can go ahead and go, sir.
Okay. So my name is Brian O'Looney. I'm an architect with Torty Gallison Partners. I'm also a member of the ICSC Government Relations Committee. We are heavily in favor of the intent of this law. We think that people who have spouses with dementia and people who, and generally Marylanders, should be comfortable in using our facilities. The concern is with a loophole and the way the laws are written and the assumptions that this was based on. My understanding, there was an architect's letter that came in that took a liberal interpretation of a particular clause in the plumbing code that we would like rectified and cleared up, mainly related to plumbing counts and how fixtures are counted. The concern is that we want to make sure that additional fixtures aren't necessarily having to be provided. The language that was misinterpreted, or we feel is misinterpreted, is the following. The plumbing fixtures located in single-user toilet facilities and bathing rooms, including family or assisted use toilets and bathing rooms that are required by Section 1109.2.1 of the International Building Code, shall contribute towards the total number of required plumbing fixtures for a building or tenant space. This does not say that the fixtures can count to a specific gender, nor does it also ties the count to a specific clause of the building code, not to a law that the General Assembly is about to pass. And so we need something more general to avoid what I'm about to describe to you. The particular situation that we're concerned about is, let's say this building that you, sir, described has 40 men's fixtures and 44 women's fixtures, of which 3 of the men's fixtures are single-use facilities and 4 of the women's use fixtures are single-use facilities. A code official can say, actually, if you make them all gender neutral, those fixtures don't count to the gender at all, or they can say, well, I got to make them all count, so I'm going to make, they all count to the women, but not the men in your short 3 men's toilets. So the language we are requesting and really feel is necessary is the following. And this is the language we'd like added. That the facilities within single occupancy public restrooms, while being marked with gender inclusive signage, can be counted by the building owner towards the minimum number of required plumbing fixtures for either the male or female genders, as required under the adopted International Plumbing Code. No code or other public official shall require additional gendered/gender inclusive restroom facilities to be built to meet minimum fixture calculations or for any other reason due to the redesignation of facilities. Further, all new or existing restroom fixtures and facilities marked with gender inclusive signage shall be allowed to be allocated towards the minimum number of required plumbing fixtures for either the male or female genders under the adopted International Plumbing Code, as determined by the needs of the building owner. So we want to make sure we're meeting the code requirements. That's not the issue. We just don't want the new law to force an additional demand on our business owners and government institutions throughout the state of Maryland.
Well, sir, thank you
for that
very much.
reason, thank you.
And if you could get that information to Delegate Solomon, since he is the bill sponsor.
I'll be honored to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I see no further questions. Thank you very much. Now we'll go on to our virtual. Our first virtual is Julia Glanz.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, members of the committee. My name is Julia Glanz, and I'm the City Administrator for the City of Salisbury. As you consider the merits of HB 40, I ask that you support this vital legislation and vote to give HB 40 a favorable committee report. This bill is essential as it demonstrates our commitment to become a more welcoming state that Marylanders can be proud to call home. Here in Salisbury, we proudly proclaim that all are welcome here. Our administration recognizes that this is not just a tagline, but a clarion call to action, ensuring that all are indeed welcome here in our city. In 2020, when Salisbury adopted our gender inclusive restroom ordinance, our efforts were lauded by members of the public, and the move was widely accepted by members of our business community. Following the decisive and unifying action we took to adopt a gender inclusive bathroom ordinance, we sent a message to parents, many of whom are now more comfortable accompanying their youth to the restroom. Our action sent a message to our LGBTQ+ community, not only stating, but demonstrating, you all are welcome here. We helped caregivers feel more comfortable as they tend to the needs of those entrusted in their care. And far too often, we allow the superficial fault lines of gender identity to separate and stigmatize. By actively embracing gender neutral inclusive facilities, we are sending a message that now is the time for progress to stipulate and codify that places of public accommodation must indeed accommodate all. This legislation, if enacted, would foster a culture of inclusivity in our great state by ensuring that we are not unnecessarily divided by gender in single occupancy restrooms. I ask for your support for this impactful legislation. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the next witness, Christina Rigby.
Thank you, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and members of the Economic Matters Committee. Thank you so much for the opportunity to provide testimony. I'm here today to express my strong support for HB 40 to promote access of gender inclusive bathrooms to all Marylanders. The purpose is to make single-user public restrooms in Maryland available to all individuals, regardless of gender, and to require signage for these single-user bathrooms is gender inclusive. And perhaps to Delegate Pippi's point, really what you're looking for in the room is a toilet and not a person. So that is one of the reasons that you're really kind of shifting how you approach these signs. This legislation is a simple and important change to public restrooms in our state. ensuring that restrooms are safe and comfortable experiences for all members of our community. It's low cost, common sense measure, and makes a world of difference to so many people. And it's really legislation for all of us. It's for families with young children like my own, who are often in need of a single-user restroom and are limited by availability. And the legislation is also for transgender and non-binary community members who often feel unwelcome in public restrooms and places that are exclusionary. This legislation also benefits caretakers and people with disabilities who would benefit from greater access to single-user bathrooms. In April 2021, the Howard County Council unanimously passed local legislation, CB 2021, to implement this important change in Howard County. This issue received broad and bipartisan support because Howard County recognized that this legislation is simply about ensuring that public places and accommodations serve all members of the public. Thank you, and I respectfully encourage a favorable report.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no questions, we move on to Brandon Russell.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Brandon Russell, and I am a resident of St. Mary's County. I felt it important to offer testimony on HB 40 because LGBTQ+ residents in my county often face being othered in their daily lives. I have a specific example I would like to share with you to illustrate this point. For privacy purposes and to avoid potential retaliation, I will keep some of the specific details more vague. I am a part of a group that organizes LGBTQ+ related events in the Southern Maryland region. Last year, this group held an event at a county-owned public park. This park has two sets of restrooms, one at the north end and another at the south end. All restrooms are marked with gender-specific signage. When we attempted to make all restrooms gender neutral, our signs were removed. Park staff informed us that we could not do this at the north end restrooms because they were multi-stall. The south end restrooms were single occupancy, so we were told those could be gender neutral if needed. I understand HB 40 applies only to single occupancy restrooms. However, my example highlights an undeserved hardship placed on LGBTQ+ individuals looking for gender neutral restrooms. The distance between the north end and south end restrooms is about 1/3 of a mile. Imagine attending an event with your LGBTQ+ community, expecting inclusivity, and then being made to walk 1/3 of a mile just to use the bathroom. I support this bill and ask for a favorable report. I also ask you to explore further considerations to help prevent situations like the one I described. It may not seem like a big deal, but these instances contribute to feeling excluded and decrease the likelihood that an individual will feel comfortable in their community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no questions.
Greetings, Chair, fellow delegates, and fellow Marylanders. My name is Dorian Rogers, pronouns he, him, his, and I'm the president of the Maryland State Conference Youth and College Division for the NAACP. Not only on behalf of our division do we express strong support for this bill, but ensuring that we as Marylanders continue to set the example for our young union. As Maryland, I have the great pleasure to brag to my colleagues across the entire organization, and we are a big organization, to brag that Maryland is always on par to ensure that we are representing our intersectional communities both at home and abroad, to set the example for our union. But we must keep going. We must persevere, and we must ensure that we are taking every approach to ensure accessibility, equity, and inclusion for our intersectional communities. As we talk about not only the benefits for our LGBTQI community, we also talk about young parents. We also talk about, again, people with disabilities. These are the intersections that formulates the diversity of our republic. And so we must continue to set the example as a state, but most importantly, as one community to ensure that we are making active approaches to ensure accessibility for our bathrooms and taking the first step to ensure the accessibility of single occupancy, gender neutral bathrooms. As our Founders Day comes up soon, on February 12th of 1909, it would be the best birthday wish to ensure that we as Marylanders give a favorable report to ensure that this bill not only passes, but we are normalizing a culture to reflect the greatness that Maryland continues to persevere in leading our nation to set the example for our world to come. We are not only doing this work for our children, but for our children's children to lay the foundation for the next generation. With that said, I hope that this body continues to give favorable reports on this bill, and we work to ensure that we are intersectional in our approach as not only as a state of Maryland, but as the United States of America. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you for your testimony. Seeing no questions, that concludes this matter. Next, we have Delegate Chi with House Bill 171. No, you're fine. Okay. And Delegate, do you have a panel that you wish to call?
I know there are several supporting witnesses, and there's no opposition. The department is here for information, so if there are supporting witnesses here, then please step forward. I know I've seen some written testimonies.
That's fine, you can go ahead and begin.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Wilson and good colleagues of ECM. It's great to be back presenting. I'm Delegate Lily Chi, for the record, here to present HB 171. For the returning ECM members, you have heard this at least a couple of times. HB 171 waives the $300 business filing fee with the Maryland State Department of Assessment and Taxation for those businesses that file online and those that don't have taxable personal property or family farms. First, the reason this bill is necessary is about competitiveness, because currently businesses doing business in Maryland have to file annually with SDED and to pay a $300 filing fee. No other neighboring states have the kind of frequency and amount that we charge in the state of Maryland for doing business here. And this is not a tax, it's a fee. As confirmed by the SDED study that was commissioned by this committee after this committee voted out my bill back in 2021. Now, we have over the years heard from many small businesses that complain about this annual fee they have to file because it discourages entrepreneurship and business formation here. So even if your business was inactive the previous year, or even if you don't have any revenue or income, you still have to file annually and pay that fee. Second, this is about operational efficiency to incentivize online filing. Online filing currently is done through a portal called the Maryland Business Express, and it costs the state virtually little to nothing to administer. In fact, more and more states are actively incentivize online filing. It is estimated that 2/3 of our businesses file online. And the fact is, those who choose to file by paper tend to be the larger corporations. So this is a small business-friendly bill that also improves equity, as well as operational efficiency for our government agency. And third, there has been a major change since last time we spoke about this bill about a year ago, because we now have a new program called the Maryland Saves program, which allows the private sector employers that don't already have their own employee savings programs to participate in the state-sponsored savings program. So any businesses that participate in this program are waived the $300 filing fee. So in other words, the state is already forfeiting 1/3 of the filing fee revenue, which will further shrink as more businesses sign up to participate in the program like this. So if we are incentivizing participation in the Maryland Saves program, then why can't we also incentivize online filing? I know there are a couple other versions of this bill, which tells you how unpopular this this business filing fee is. As you probably are aware, especially members of this committee are aware, these days we are asking our businesses to do more and more for their employees. The least we can do is to show some appreciation for their contributions to our economy and our community wealth building by removing administrative barrier to doing business in Maryland. And I'm not necessarily wedded to specifics. If this committee believes in the spirit of this bill, then I welcome your ideas to make it work one way or another. Sometimes the message we send is much louder and more significant than the revenue we can generate. And we need to ask ourselves, what is the cost of a business choosing not to form in the state of Maryland? By collecting less fees up front, then hopefully we can generate more tax revenues on the back end. And in this day and age, I must say, finally, that this is especially important given that increasingly today's entrepreneurs in Maryland are more likely to be a woman. In fact, in Montgomery County, half of our small businesses are women-owned, for example. A woman, a minority, or an immigrant. For many Marylanders, forming their own business is the single most important ticket to generational wealth building and pulling themselves out of poverty or minimum wage jobs. We should encourage that and get ourselves out of their way of their upward mobility. As Governor Moore said, it's about work, wages, and wealth. So I hope we can finally do something this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See no questions, good delegate. Sir, could you identify yourself?
And I'm Jonathan Glazer from the Department of Assessments and Taxation. The Department and the Administration are not taking a position on this bill, but I'm happy to answer any technical questions that you may have.
I see one from Delegate Sample Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate Chief, for bringing the bill. This is one that I've heard from constituents for some time as well. In looking at the fiscal note, I just wanted to ask you a couple of things, and it may be within the report that you referenced. It was good to hear that Maryland Saves program is waiving the fee, which is one tool to get towards, the end goal. But is there also an opportunity to gradually make this happen instead of looking at the significant decrease in revenues, about $68 or $66 million?
Yeah, I love the question because that is the direction I hope we can go as a state. My bill is based on the SDET study's recommendation a couple of years ago after looking at national business filing fees and looking at the state of Maryland and our competitive jurisdictions. But we can find some ways to move toward that. For example, if we really want to incentivize online filing, then instead of charging 300 flat fee, just like a tiny 2-people business is same as 1,000 people big corporation right now, right? Can we make it more equitable? Charge $30, for example, right? So they still file, but not a burden, for example. And also, my bill would also include those businesses don't have taxable personal property to file with SDET. So if they don't have taxable personal property, which is the original value under $20,000, then they don't need to pay that fee either. So the idea is to make things more equitable as well as more efficient operationally.
Sure. And my last point is, within the report that was done, does it show how that gradually decreases and what those figures look like or what the percentage might be? I'm just trying to understand that a little bit better. And if you have that, get it to me later, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I can send you the report. Okay. I don't think it has the tiered structure of scenarios that you are talking about, but it has provided a lot of good context of competitive landscape.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I'm sure that a good subcommittee chairman could work out several options for both the committee and the body at large to work with. So whoever that may be, I look forward to her product.
What are you talking about?
I believe I don't see any other questions, and the gentleman from SDET, Mr. Glazer, I know you're just here for information. I don't see anybody beating down your door, so thank you for coming. I do appreciate your attendance. Thank you, Delegate Chi. Is Bob Enton available? Dr. No is not here. I guess we have another individual from SDET. I'm sure you're covering for him as well. You're fine. We have one virtual, Justin McHenry.
Here we go. Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the House Economic Matters Committee. I'm Justin McInerney, and I'm here this afternoon on behalf of the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce testifying in strong support of House Bill 171. First of all, thank you, Delegate Chi, for your work on this issue and for introducing the bill. Simply stated, the Greater Bethesda Chamber consistently supports legislation that decreases costs for business of all sizes, especially small businesses. Additionally, we appreciate legislation that incentivizes instead of penalizes. This bill does both of these things. For these reasons, the Greater Bethesda Chamber is happy to support House Bill 171 and urge a favorable vote. Thank you for hearing from me.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. That concludes this hearing. We'll move on to the next House Bill 293, Delegate Henson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the House Economic Matters Committee. Thank you. I am here to present House Bill 293, Deja Vu. It is very similar to House Bill 171, which you just heard. The bill would have the same effect of eliminating the $300 annual filing fee for corporations, LLCs, and other legal entities, and also the $100 filing fee for family farms. Where the bill is dissimilar, if I can point out any differences, is that House Bill 171 would also make that elimination not just for businesses who file their annual report online, but additionally for businesses that do not have taxable personal property. That is not a feature of House Bill 293. What the bill would do is take those small businesses and give them the opportunity for relief from not only that, that annual fee, but making sure that we're also incentivizing businesses to file online, which is a better and smoother transaction for our departments. When we think about businesses, I just want to level set who we're talking about. 83% of businesses in Maryland are small businesses, and there are small businesses that do not operate with employees. So we're talking about people who are self-employed. Of our self-employed businesses, a 2019 survey discovered that of our corporations, those that were incorporated, the annual salary for those business owners was just $56,000 a year. And the annual salary for those unincorporated businesses, our LLCs and other types of entities, was just $25,000 a year. So we're not talking about people that have a great deal of disposable income. We're talking about businesses that are contributing to our economy and often on very slender margins. When we look at all the business reports that rank those states and categorize us, on average, Maryland ranks as the 13th worst state to do business in. So we know that anything that we can do that makes business more flexible in Maryland would attract and incentivize that business staying here. When you look at the fiscal note on this bill, the fiscal note does have a note of $50 million annually. But I'd like to put that in context. That is less than 2% of our state revenue. So while it looks like it's a big number out of context, in context, it definitely is something that we as a state have the ability to be looking at with our number of delegates who are interested in it. I don't think this is the last time you'll hear this before your committee. The way that it came to my attention, in 2020, when our Department of Commerce provided what was then offered as grants to businesses, we had about $40 million worth of COVID-19 grant relief or loan relief out there to businesses. We know that those loans were then later on converted to grants for our businesses. But I got a number of calls from our small businesses, the barbershop owner, the cake baker, the yoga studio owner, people who were self-employed but had fallen out of compliance with SDET, and they were not eligible to receive any of that funding that was there. So that $40 million that was offered as a loan converted to a grant, a lot of businesses were excluded for failure to be in good standing. So that's what brought my area of interest to this area. I would ask the committee to consider the bill. Of course, I stand in support of the bill you heard before this one. I think the goal here by all the sponsors is to simply provide the relief for our businesses. And with that, I would ask for a favorable report.
Thank you, Delegate. Seeing no questions, this will conclude that hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I was assuming the gentleman from SDAT really didn't have anything to say. Thank you. We're going to move on to House Bill 282, Delegate Queen. I know, yeah, we're leaping around a little bit. We're trying to get everything organized. Thank you.
I wasn't texting. Okay. Good afternoon, members of, good afternoon, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and members of the Economic Matters Committee. May I bring up the few people who are going to be part of my panel? It won't be but a couple, I think. Is that okay?
Please.
Okay. So this should be hopefully a simple bill, and we'll talk to what we're doing and why we're doing this. So HB 282, the financial institutions, mortgage loan originators, independent contractors. This bill is being brought because it's trying to address inconsistency in the guidance on that has been provided by the Office of the Commissioner of Financial Regulations on how 1099s, independent contractors who are mortgage loan originators, are treated versus W-2, which are employees. So we know that W-2 employees get, taxes taken out by their employers, whereas 1099s, this is not the case. But here in Maryland, we are doing that for our 1099 independent contractors who are mortgage loan originators. And so we just want to make sure this guidance is consistent with what we do with other 1099 contractors and consistent in what is happening throughout the states. We have 39 other states who either have affirmative language of how the mortgage loan originators are treated, or they don't address that because they just treat them as a normal 1099 contractor. And so we're trying to make sure that that language is consistent. It does not take away the responsibility of that employer, that mortgage company, for making sure that their 1099 mortgage loan originators follow the standards that are required. It's not allowing them, if they're 1099 mortgage loan originators, to work for multiple mortgage companies. So they can't do that, even though they're contractors. So all that consistency in labor law is being maintained. But we just want to make sure that the handling of the taxes is appropriate for a 1099 contractor. Any questions on that? So we look for a favorable recommendation, but I'll allow the others to talk more about it. And we have someone from the Office of Consumer Financial Regulations to answer any other questions if you need.
Yes, sir, if you could introduce yourself and go ahead.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Chris DePietro. I'm here on behalf of Rocket Mortgage. We are here in support of this legislation, and we'd like to thank Delegate Queen for raising this issue. It will, I think, clarify the existing law and actually meld together the current practice with what we hope will be law in the future. So just to kind of set the stage about how this works, mortgage lenders work with MLOs. MLOs are mortgage loan originators. MLOs are individually licensed. So me, if I were an MLO, the license would be in my name. I carry that with me. But the way an MLO could be either a W-2 employee, that you work directly for that mortgage lender, or they could be the 1099, as the delegate sponsor pointed out. Under the current statute, there's a proxy in that statute that says that that mortgage lenders must withhold taxes from MLOs. And the reason for that proxy was to actually make sure that there was a one-to-one relationship with a mortgage lender and an individual MLO. And that is an important regulatory oversight for the industry. So what this bill would do is basically say that MLOs could be, in fact, hold a license as a 1099, which would kind of replace this guidance that we received from the Commissioner's Office in 2021 that basically says you can do this now, but you have to withhold tax. And as you can imagine, that is creates a burden to the mortgage lender to do withholdings for 1099, the 1099 relationship, but it also creates an issue for the 1099 MLO themselves because they are receiving taxes or income from various sources. There's no way for the mortgage lender to understand what their tax picture is and how they should remit taxes to the government. So this bill would clarify that, would remove that need for this. Just to also let you know, this is permissible in 39 states. Maryland would be the 40th state if we were to adopt and pass this legislation. And, you know, hey, we're a big lender here today, but this also benefits small mortgage lenders. I think you will see in the testimony, there is a letter from a very small mortgage lender who said this will help him grow his business. So it applies across the board to everybody. It's not specifically for our company. Thank you. And also with me today is Michael Stedman. And he is Director of Regulatory Affairs at Rocket Mortgage, and he's going to offer some brief remarks and then answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Mr. Stedman, and then we have one from Steve Aaron, shocker. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, sorry. Good afternoon, Chairman Wilson and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony today. Rocket Mortgage appreciates the opportunity here to offer testimony in support of the proposed amendments to the Maryland Code, which will provide clarity and the conditions that an independent contractor may be licensed and sponsored as a mortgage loan originator, otherwise an MLO. Under Maryland's current code, mortgage licensees are only able to sponsor MLOs who taxes are withheld by the sponsoring licensee. Typically, this type of tax withholding would indicate a W-2 employment tax status. However, based on the code's current vague language, companies looking to sponsor independent contractor MLOs, again, must withhold those taxes. And this really goes against the spirit of an independent contractor arrangement, which generally provides flexibility on tax filings, including allowing independent contractors to anticipate what their tax burden will be and withhold how they see fit. And for small business owners, taking the taxes off of the top of their earnings doesn't allow them to reinvest those funds back into the business throughout the year. The common sense change will help keep the tax dollars local and accessible to small business owners. And then in addition, if the company is unable or unwilling to support the withholding of these taxes for these independent contractor MLOs, the only alternative option is for these MLOs to be licensed as a broker. And this could force that independent contractor MLO who may be operating on a part-time basis to take on these compliance and other associated risks to become licensed as a mortgage broker. So this is going to create additional compliance enforcement obligations and could negatively impact Maryland consumers if they do business with a brokerage who may not have all the proper policies and procedures in place. So in sum, we appreciate the committee's leadership on this matter, and we urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Before we go, I do know we have, I talked with them from the Office of Commission Financial Regulations. They're back in the back. You guys, they're just here for information. You guys don't have to testify. I do appreciate you guys showing up, as I stated earlier, for informational purposes. So if my colleagues end up having any questions, you might step forward. But as such, I only see one question from Delegate Aarons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I listen to this 1099, it takes me a little bit back. I'm a real estate agent, so I deal with mortgages quite a bit. And I worry a lot about the fact that if you can open this up to part-time employees, the quality of the mortgage lending system degrades, and we're going to just literally open up to somebody that's sitting back saying, you know what, I'm going to work today, I'm going to be a mortgage loan officer today, tomorrow I'm going to do something else. And I think that reeks with me danger as we move forward on mortgages and the problems we've had to pass. Can you help me with that?
Absolutely, and it's a great question. So it's one that we've thought about quite a bit as well. Regardless whether you're a W-2 traditional employee or an independent contractor, a 1099, at the end of the day, the sponsor, the lender is sponsoring you and taking on that complete oversight, policies and procedures, and ensuring you are being compliant and safeguarding that lending operation with the consumer. So at the end of the day, regardless of whether you're a W-2 or a 1099, at the end of the day, the sponsorship and oversight ultimately rests on the licensee who is sponsoring that license.
And I understand that accountability is there, but as a part-time person, I'm not accessible. I may be, if I'm going to talk to you about a loan today, tomorrow I might be doing something else, and I don't have the efficiencies that maybe I would if I was a full-time employee. being paid and accountable to that being my only job, taking care of that business, because it's a large dollar, it's a large amount of money, it's probably the biggest purchase in anybody's life, and to have somebody working part-time on a mortgage and something that big, I find that complicated.
It's a big responsibility, and I think to also to put some color on that, we were just talking right before this hearing about the training. Not only the training, if you look at the fiscal note, it's going to talk about all the requirements just to be an MLO authorized by the state to have that license. In addition to that, Rocket alone has 50 hours a month of training that they have to go through. So it's not a light task. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be well trained. Because this, again, is the core reason why there's this relationship between a single sponsor, in this case, and the MLO. We do not want to change that at all, because ultimately it's the sponsor that's responsible for that MLO operating within the law on behalf of that customer.
I'm with you on it. But the training part of it, you're going to see a lot of bills coming in front of this committee this year about real estate and the fact of how we have to train, because people are coming in, we're independent contractors for all intents and purposes, and when you get involved in a deal or a transaction, and one person's working it full-time, the other person's, and that's what I think, that's my only concern with
Understood.
the bill. But thank you, I appreciate the answers.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if this might be putting the Office of Consumer Financial Regulation on the spot, but we already have MLOs operating now, so I don't know if they have that number, and we can tell you what that is now, but we can get that to you to let you know. This is already going on.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Delegate Rose?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the bill. One quick question. So similar to realtors, do mortgage loan officers have to hold some sort of like an E&O insurance?
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about, like in case of harm, so the licensee has a surety bond that covers exactly what you're referring to. So like Delegate Queen had just mentioned, we've been operating in this mode, this 1099 mode, since 21. And we have a surety bond that covers all those individuals. Regardless if you're a W-2 or 1099, you are covered by the licensee's surety bond.
Okay, and just one quick follow-up. And so in that industry, would you say it's pretty competitive to get the business from realtors?
Absolutely, especially nowadays, 100%.
So there really would not be an incentive for someone to be an MLO and not do a good job, even part-time or full-time, because they would not get referrals. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Thank you.
Okay, see no further questions for this panel. I believe that concludes this hearing as well. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
I could gather my colleagues' brief indulgence. We are having an issue with, obviously, the sign interpreter, I believe, is testifying downstairs. In addition, we have Delegate Watson. I think she's testifying in another committee. So brief indulgence. And I think for you, Delegate Ampray, you can get ready to get going. We're just waiting for people from ENT to come over, but you can go ahead and get started. Please no. It'll probably be finished by tomorrow, but yes.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. It's my honor to be in front of you today in support of House Bill 91. House Bill 91 requires an owner, operator, or manager of a hotel to provide recycling for the guests of the hotel and to recycle certain materials on or before October 1st, 2024. It further authorizes the county to require an owner, operator, or manager of a hotel to report recycling activities to the county in a certain manner. And lastly, it authorizes an enforcement unit, officer, or official of a county, municipality, or other local government to conduct inspections of a hotel to enforce certain provisions of the Act. The Maryland Recycling Act requires a county with a population of 150,000 or more to recycle 35% or more of its waste, and a county with a population of less than 150,000 is required to recycle at least 20% of its waste. Many Maryland residents and businesses do their part to reach these standards, and House Bill 91 seeks to draw in the hotel industry to help us reduce our overall waste going into our landfills, and of course to keep the Great Chesapeake clear. According to the 2020 Maryland Solid Waste Management and Diversion Report, 25% of counties fail to meet their requirement under the MRA. Notably, many of the counties that do meet their requirement already require hotel recycling. In 2020, Baltimore City only had a 15% recycling rate, far below our required 35%. And given the amount of hotels that we do have in our city, this is a great opportunity for us to get closer to hitting these marks. Statewide hotel recycling requirements can make a huge impact on our collective waste diversion and help Maryland reach our goals set forth by law. The enactment of HB 91 would authorize and encourage counties to include hotels in their waste reporting. Tourism is a big industry, and it's back on the rise after the pandemic. And we know that hotel guests are often more likely to use disposable waste products, which is a great opportunity for us to divert as much as possible. House Bill 91 is aligned with the goals and objectives of our existing legislation and the Maryland Department of the Environment. It provides our state with additional means to preserve our environment. And I know that there are some advocates against the bill, but I have talked with the hotel industry. And I'm more than willing to work with the committee to work towards finding some amendments or tweaks we can make in order to make the bill work, and also would be open to amending the bill to make sure that we are not requiring hotels to provide recycling that the counties don't currently offer at the moment. I have someone who is joining us virtually, Sophia Hussein from the Zero Waste Manager from Baltimore City's Department of Public Waste, who can provide more details on the metrics and numbers in regards to this bill. And I'm urging a favorable report on this bill. Thank you so much, and hoping to answer any questions.
Thank you for that lengthy dissertation on this bill. I do not see any questions at this time, so we will call your first witness, which is Ms. Sophia Hussein. Whoop, okay, I think Rob Fryer jumped on. Well, Mr. Fryer, you're on, so you can go first, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm Rob Fryer of the Maryland Sierra Club Zero Waste Team, speaking on behalf of the 70,000 members and supporters of the Maryland Sierra Club in support of HB 91 as a great step forward to enhance waste diversion from incinerators and landfill and help us achieve Maryland's recycling goals. For decades, Americans have sorted their waste by separating the recyclables. However, travelers often don't have the same opportunities, nor are they necessarily aware of what can be recycled in other jurisdictions. Under HB 91, guests in Maryland hotels would be able to recycle their recyclable materials. Those materials are estimated to be 1 to 2 pounds of waste per room per night. And that's a significant amount, considering that Maryland hosted around 20 million overnight hotel visitors in 2019. According to the Maryland 2014 Department of the Environment Zero Waste Plan, goals were set for recycling by 2020. Unfortunately, Maryland is falling well short of those goals. In 2019, residents and businesses recycled only 40% of their municipal solid waste. This is 20% less than the goal. The bill is likely to increase the state's recycling rate by adding the recyclable waste of Maryland's hotels and millions of overnight hotel guests. We like the bill, however, we propose 2 amendments to improve the implementation of the bill. First, we recommend defining hotel to include all lodging establishments, including inns, lodges, motels, and all other businesses that provide overnight accommodations to paying guests. The second amendment we propose is that the bill should require signage next to or on recycling receptacles displaying the types of materials that are accepted. Travelers often are unaware of what is locally recyclable. So these 2 amendments will expand coverage of the bill and reduce contamination of the recycling stream by travelers. On behalf of the Maryland Sierra Club, we urge a favorable report on HB 91 and adoption of the proposed strengthening amendments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, sir. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to Sophia Hussein.
Hi there. I'm not able to start my video. It's the host is disabled, but good afternoon, honorable members of the Economic Matters and Environment and Transportation Committees. My name is Sophia Hussein, and I'm the Zero Waste Manager for Baltimore City's Department of Public Works Bureau of Solid Waste. The City of Baltimore is in support of House Bill 91, which requires owners and operators of hotels to provide recycling services for recyclable materials generated in front and back of house, including glass, plastic, aluminum, and paper. Requiring hotels to recycle will only help move the city closer to meeting its 35% recycling mandate. Hotels are known for providing guests with single-use conveniences like mini soap bars, shampoo bottles, single-use sachets of sugar, disposable cups, plastic straws, and when disposed of in the landfill, these items could take centuries to break down. If the industry must rely on single-use disposables, those materials should at the very least be recycled. Studies estimate that 50 to 60% of hotel waste is recyclable. Similar bills were passed in Montgomery County in 1993 and Prince George's County in 2012. These counties have the highest MRA reported recycling rates in the state. San Francisco implemented a similar program in 2016, which resulted in one hotel diverting 70% of their waste and resulting in a $200,000 cost savings in the first year of the program for the hotel. By requiring hotels to recycle, hoteliers not only realize cost savings by right-sizing their ordering, but they could also gain reputation as sustainably minded businesses, attracting carbon-conscious guests. In 2025, millennials will be spending $600 billion each year, and they're 87% more likely to be loyal to companies that help them positively impact social and environmental issues. Recycling is both a social and environmental issue. We can reduce environmental externalities associated with burning and burying waste, conserve natural resources, and pave the way for high recycled content domestic manufacturing, closing the loop to build a circular and sustainable economy. For the hotel industry, whose annual revenue is reported to be $193 billion in 2023, simply recycling is one of the easiest things they can do as a responsible and invested member of the Baltimore community. As such, we request a favorable report of HB 91.
Thank you very much for your testimony, ma'am. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the opposition. We have Amy Rohr, Frank Boston. I'm sorry? He's unfavorable. It's Amy Rohr, Frank Boston. Ari, are you being redundant or are you here additionally?
Additionally.
Okay. Ari Plott and Mr. Patel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you guys. I guess Ms. Rohr, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Amy Rohr. We're here on behalf of the Maryland Hotel Lodging Association, respectfully opposed to HB 91. I'd like to start out by saying that hotel guests want to stay in sustainable accommodations, and our members have incorporated it into operations in multiple ways. Efforts to reduce waste include not only recycling as much as possible, but also moving away from single-use amenities, programs to reduce food waste, and increasing composting at hotels. You have my written testimony, which includes an overview of Responsible Stay, which is a national campaign that highlights numerous commitments hotels and their brands have already made publicly committing to sustainability. We feel this bill is unnecessary in light of the proactive steps taken by the industry without legislation. Many hotels do already offer recycling to their guests. Their brands encourage and sometimes require it, but it is always based on local recycling requirements, which we have found can vary greatly and lead to exceptions. We have heard from multiple members in various single-stream counties that often their haulers do not require separation. All of the waste is picked up in one truck and then taken to a waste transfer station where the separation of recyclable materials occurs. In those cases, a requirement for hotels to provide recycling for the guests, as this bill mandates, would be an effort and expense for no good purpose. We are concerned that this bill places onus on a hotel to properly sort a very specific list of materials for recycling. And as much as we encourage our guests to recycle, we can't police it in guest rooms, and we definitely cannot require staff to sort trash if it's not disposed of properly. Our members are looking to do everything within their control to operate in a sustainable way and reduce our waste. Recycling is effective for many hotels, but it is not effective for all of them. We respectfully ask for an unfavorable report on HB 91.
Seeing no questions, moving on to Frank Boston.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Frank Boston, and since my partner's testifying, I'll be extremely brief and defer to him. I will say, as Amy mentioned, most of the hotels already have recycling programs, either individually or through their counties. We want to recycle. It's extremely hard to be accountable for what the guests are going to do in the rooms, whether they're going to put the recyclable material in the proper containers. We understand the gist and the spirit of the bill, and it's a good cause. And we were trying to figure out a way that we could amend it to make it work, but there's really no way to amend this bill because it's putting in a requirement on us that it's going to hold us accountable for the acts of third parties, including the guests, including the collectors of the recyclable material. And I'll stop there since my partner's testifying. Thank you. We ask for unfavorable.
Mr. Plott, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, honorable members of the committee, my name is Ari Plout. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Hotel and Lodging Association, respectfully opposition to House Bill 91. We greatly appreciate Delegate Ampery's willingness to attempt to work through some of our issues, but like Mr. Boston said, we don't feel that the amendments would be able to fix this bill. There's just a couple reasons why we oppose. I know some of them have been mentioned, but I just want to stress that each county does their own recycling, so requiring every material that is outlined in the bill to be recycled would be difficult to comply with. Also, does the bill put the onus on the hotels? What does it mean if we contract to third parties, as Mr. Boston said? What does it mean if the guests would fail to recycle, even if the hotels would provide the bins? The one suggestion we may have as an amendment would be an incentive as opposed to the mandate. If we recycle, would it possibly receive some sort of tax credit? But in conclusion, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we respectfully oppose this bill. Thank you.
And lastly, Mr. Patel.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, committee. My name is Deepak Patel. I own and operate a hotel in Baltimore County. I also represent the Asian American Hotel Owners Association for State of Maryland owners. I'm here in opposed to House Bill 91. As a part of our daily practice towards responsible stay at our hotels, we made various efforts to properly recycle. We offered separate recycling bins throughout the hotel, including rooms. But no matter what we do, hotel guest dumps everything comes to their way into these bins. There is no accountability on their part. But we continued our efforts by beginning sorting out recyclable items from mix-up trash. For one employee, this turned out to be a full-time job. We soon realized that this task was filthy, unhygienic, and seriously jeopardizing hotel staff safety. Despite all of this, at one point our recycling hauler smacked us with a hefty fine one day, claiming our recycling was contaminated with an unacceptable item. One minor inadmissible item indicates that everything in 8-yard container we had is contaminated. They penalized us on a total weight of 8-yard container. While hotel guests are still not recycling correctly and hotel staff is trying to sort out recyclable item from mix-up trash, we all got hit with pandemic, in which safety of our staff became a #1 priority. And not just that, finding people to work, it became a challenge on its own. So I'm trying to explain that recycling should be a moral responsibility of the general public, not a burden to a hotel. No matter what we do inside the hotel, the recycling container will be contaminated outside, and hauler will ultimately charge us a fees. And this bill actually not solving anything, but imposing some more penalties and fines to hotels. It is not necessary for state to regulate recycling inside the hotels. I respectfully ask for an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Before we take questions, we have one more virtual unfavorable. Mr. Adam Jackson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Adam Jackson. I am the Vice President, Hotel Operations, representing the Holiday Inn Express Northside and Comfort Inn Gold Coast in Ocean City. I am here in opposition to House Bill 91. As Ms. Rohr mentioned, as Delegate Ampery referenced, the town of Ocean City is one of the many locations that do not offer recycling services and instead participates in alternative waste removal, All Ocean City municipal solid waste is collected by the town and transported to Chester, Pennsylvania, where Corvanta for Recovery is contracted to repurpose the waste, allowing them to generate heat and produce steam. The steam that is created is then used to produce electricity. As part of this process, post-incineration, metals are separated from the waste and recycled. With this process being the only option allowed in Ocean City, providing on-property recycling would be a waste of time and staff resources, since all waste is recycled and recycled items will be shipped out of town together with no separation. At our Holiday Inn Express, we've eliminated the use of single-use plastics in our showers and are currently switching to bulk dispensers in our bathroom sinks as well. For our Comfort Inn, Choice Hotels mandates a lobby recycling station, which is purely for optics since we have no place to put that recycling but the trash. They also mandate no use of styrofoam products. As most hotels do, we offer limited housekeeping services that cut down on water waste and electricity while laundering linen and terry. Both ISG and Choice, as our brand partners, have commitment to green programs that we fully support and fully abide by, which includes the tracking of utility usage, water conservation, efficient usage of heating and cooling, LED lighting requirements, among other items. I am asking for an unfavorable report on House Bill 91. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. We do have one question. Delegate Charkoudian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for your testimony, and I think that you raised some good issues, but I want to preface this by saying I always wonder about testimony that is kind of along the lines of, we're doing this already, so don't make us do it. And I want to take it at face value that your intention is good, and with that, really ask you to work with the sponsor to find a way forward. I heard him present a couple of options. I do understand that waste management is, it's challenging, but we've got to fix it. And if I can quote the chair who said, we've done everything that's easy already. And so like now it really is time for us to, as it relates to the climate crisis, and it's time to take on the really hard stuff. And we've got to find a way to sort of push, pull for everyone to do it. And so I'm just wondering about your thoughts about things along the lines of requirements for offering recycling if there's some place that takes it within a 30-mile radius, which is, and I'll give a couple of, I'm interested in your thoughts on a few possibilities. That's what we do with compost now, with large organic waste. I'm curious about your thoughts of some kind of guidelines around, consumer education and having residents, guests recycle, and then, but not being responsible for guests who, mix and contaminate, or, being responsible. I think the example that was given, being responsible if there's a hauler, in the area, being responsible for collecting data. Like, it would be really useful to know how much is and isn't recycled from hotels, and both those who have effective programs and those who have no programs, what's possible. So it seems to me, I'm thinking there's many areas for possible movement on this bill. Those are a couple. I'm wondering if you could comment on those and maybe think about what are others that could at least allow us to make progress on this, even as we're working on fixing the larger system in which, there are some constraints to the ability to recycle.
Well, I'll start. The committee may not know, but before this hearing, we met with Delegate Ampry to have that exact same dialogue, and we will always work with the good delegate to continue to that dialogue. The best example is, and I agree with you, education may be a good step, maybe a bill of surrounding education and educating the guests that they should, here's how to recycle, what they should do, or whatever that looks like, is a great idea. But, every day in our own law office, we recycle. We set it in separate bins, and sure enough, when the sanitation engineer comes to pick it up, he takes it all and puts it in one bag. And we say, hey, aren't you supposed to recycle that? He said, oh, I will. So, it's that kind of activity we're going to have to be ultimately fined and be responsible for, even if we try to do the right thing. And you're right, I think it goes to the education, and we'll work with the sponsor on that.
Yeah, and I think, E&T folks are here, and they can, I'm sure, talk about, they're working on the hauler side of it. We're working on the facility side of it. Like, we've got to hit it from multiple angles, but if each angle says, our customers aren't interested in it, and then the haulers say, you know what I'm saying? There's no place to take it to. If every angle keeps saying the system's broken, then we never move the system forward. And so we've got to just start with something at every angle, or we're never going to move it, right? Amy, did you want to answer as well? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to comment that for a lot of hotels, it does make sense to offer recycling to guests. We know that our guests want it. 83% of guests that have been surveyed say they want to stay in a sustainable accommodation this year. So it also makes good business sense, and it is the right thing to do. But the hotels want to do it in common sense ways. And there are other things that are more so under our control. But when it comes to recycling, I think it really does come down to how is it being hauled away. And there's so much confusion out there where I've talked to some members that say this is no problem. Others, when they have gone through efforts to separate the recyclables only to see it all taken away in one truck, there's a lot of frustration there where they don't see the point in doing it when that's what happens. And it may still be recycled because it's being sorted at the site, but it just doesn't make sense to require a property to do it. And then when it comes to the reporting, I've also heard mixed things from our members. I think in certain areas of the state, there are haulers that have trucks that have scales installed on them, and they can tell a hotel exactly by the pound how much they are recycling. There are others where the hotels are billed based on the unit. It could be partially full or all the way full, and they're billed based on units. And I've heard from other members over the years that their haulers don't provide that information to them. So when we start talking about reporting by the hotel industry, I don't know that all of the hotels would be able to provide that information, and we really have to involve the haulers.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want my questions to sound like I don't think it's complicated. I think it is. And we have this opportunity to make some progress in this area this session. And so I do hope that you work with the sponsor and make some progress that reflects how interested I think your members are in moving it forward. So thank you.
May I add to it? So just to get to generally, there are different type of hotels, and the mom and pop hotel, the economy brand, the guests that we have no idea, regardless how much education we put into it. I recycle at my house. I mean, it's working out perfectly fine. We recycle our own stuff, what we get for the hotel. But guests, oh my God, it's a different type of guest every hotel has. And that's the reason that we started to sort out item on our own, our staff. But our hands are tied. We can't separate those out from mix-up trash every single time. And that became a challenge.
Thank you, sir. Delegate Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. During the time of shutdown, during the prolonged time of COVID, do you have any data on how much money your industry lost, and have you fully recovered? What does that picture look like?
Certainly, the industry is doing better, but it will take many years, beyond where we stand today, for the industry to fully recover all that was lost during the shutdowns. There is data out there. I don't want to misquote the number, but there are studies out there showing significant losses.
Okay, and just one quick follow-up. So the enforcement part was a little bit just concerning as far as the number of people that would be able to come in and inspect hotels and decide on these fines of $150 per day. Have you done any research, or do you have any data on what the potential impact there could be? If somebody makes a mistake on a day that they happen to be inspected, how much do you think that could possibly roll up to?
We have not done research on that specifically, but we have a lot of questions about what enforcement would look like. There are times when hotels are sharing the waste, blanking on the word, the big things that the trash goes.
Dumpsters.
The dumpsters, thank you. There are times when hotels are sharing dumpsters with other businesses, non-hotel businesses. And this bill is targeting a single industry where, it may not go, apply to the CVS store that the hotel is sharing the dumpster with. And so if that's how it's being enforced, by evaluating, what's in the dumpster versus what is not being recycled, we don't know how that would be accounted for, and just the reporting in general. I think we would need more details to know how that impacts hotels.
The one thing I want to add, and I think you alluded to.
Wait. Okay. We're not gonna, we don't need multiple answers to the question unless she asks for something additional.
I'm good.
We good? Thank you guys very much. Because we have other hearings, obviously, to attend to and other witnesses to deal with. So seeing no further questions, I believe that this hearing's come to an end. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Now, be calling Delegate Watson, House Bill 209. So is she just mad at me today? Is that why they're all out of order?
Good afternoon, Chairman Wilson, Vice Chairman Crosby, and members of the committee. I'm Delegate Courtney Watson. It's good to be back here. And I am here today on House Bill 209. It's the annual bill sponsored by the Committee on Corporation Law of the Section on Business Law of the Maryland State Bar Association to make technical changes and upgrades to the Maryland General Corporation Law. Very exciting. This year's bill is a combination of fixes to highly technical corporate laws. The most significant of the provisions of the bill are as follows. The bill clarifies that a corporation may not issue a stock certificate in the bearer form, which can be found on page 3 of the bill. The bill also specifies that a non-stock corporation charter may provide an individual may serve as a director merely by the virtue of an office that the person holds within the organization or in another organization, which can be found on page 6. In addition, language is added to the Corporations and Associations article setting forth the procedure for terminating the existence of real estate investment trusts. Finally, this bill also clarifies the circumstances in which the owners of statutory trusts formed under the Investment Company Act of 1940, such as mutual funds, may be governed by a section of the Maryland Code that sets forth the voting rights and stockholder meeting rules. With me today, thank goodness, is Bill Carlson, Chairman of the Board of the Maryland State Bar Association Committee on Corporation Law, and he will answer any questions you have and testify about these changes.
Briefly, the people we have signed up are Mr. Tyler Michaels, Jonathan Glazer, and Michael Higgs.
Michael Higgs on behalf of the Department of Assessments and Taxation is here.
And your name was what again, sir?
Michael Higgs?
No, I apologize.
Oh,
The other
sorry.
gentleman whose name we do not have.
William Carlson. I signed up on Monday. I thought I was in the system, but I provide written testimony in the upload system too.
Okay, well,
Those are the only two.
that's fine. If you'd like to go ahead. I just didn't know who you were. Make sure we raise your name.
Thank you, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, members of the Economic Matters Committee. I'm Bill Carlson, William Carlson, Chair of the Maryland State Bar Association Committee on Corporation Law. And each year, as Delegate Watson alluded to, we bring bills to sponsors. Unfortunately, we get most bills will come through here. Last year was Delegate Brooks was our sponsor. This year's bill was summarized well by Delegate Watson. The one I want to underscore is the change about ex officio directors, which applies to nonprofits, non-stock corporations. I think it's probably maybe obscure, but a very useful one. There are many nonprofits which might name an ex officio director. It may be the county executive, the president of a nearby hospital, a pastor of a church, where so-and-so is automatically on the board of directors of the nonprofit. And the manner in which this is correctly done is really that the board has to elect that person. You can't just say, well, we have a new pastor, he's now on the board. You have to elect. And there have been issues in the past about people not following that technical process, and there are questions about whether the board acted properly, quorum, votes, and whatnot. So we have a provision that nonprofits, non-stock corporations can amend their charter, their bylaws to provide for people in specified offices, either within the corporation or outside the corporation, to automatically be on the board. And there are other changes we have. I think the one on the not permitting stock certificates in bearer form is important for corporations, as they need to know who their stockholders are. As the laws change, particularly with the federal government, with the Corporate Transparency Act. If you had stockholders, you didn't know their names, you'd be hard to obey the federal act. And we asked for a favorable report on House Bill 209, and if there are any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Seeing none, gentlemen, if you'd like to, please state your name and go ahead and testify.
Thank you, Chair Wilson and Vice Chair Crosby. For the record, my name is Michael Higgs, and I am the Director of the Department of Assessments and Taxation. First off, I'd like to thank Delegate Watson for introducing this bill and the Maryland State Bar Association's Business Law Section for all their hard work on keeping Maryland's laws up to date. The Department of Assessments and Taxation strongly supports the Maryland State Bar Association's annual efforts to improve technical aspects of the law. I want to highlight one aspect of this bill: the establishment of a formal process for a Title VIII real estate investment trust to inform the department and the public that it is dissolving. Similar to other entities, this will give the department better information on entities that are terminating their existence, so that we'll have better business records from which to operate. Again, thank you, and we urge a favorable vote on HB 209.
Thank you for your brief testimony. Seeing no questions, I believe that concludes this bill. The next bill is also Delegate Watson, which is House Bill 72.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have two members of a panel that are coming up. And good afternoon again, Chairman Wilson, Vice Chairman Crosby, and members of the committee. I'm Delegate Courtney Watson, and I'm presenting House Bill 72. I'm going to simplify this as much as possible because it can get complicated, but it's really not that complicated. So we have a problem affecting smaller charities and nonprofits that has to do with the state requiring an audit. The state requires a charity exceeding $750,000 in revenue to provide a financial review or an audit to the state, which is perfectly reasonable if that $750,000 is cash. But the definition of revenue includes donated property. And there are some nonprofits that are operating in our communities, smaller nonprofits that have 80 or 90 or 75% of their revenue in the form of donated property. And they might have only 20% or 15 or 10% in the form of donated cash. So therefore, these smaller nonprofits really can't afford an audit, which would cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. So the rule that we currently have in the law is a disincentive for small charities to properly report their financial activities, as well as a disincentive for small charities which are performing significant services in the public to grow. So today you'll hear from one of those nonprofits that has a compelling story about helping children around the state, and there are other charities that are similarly affected. It was complicated to craft a bill that narrowly applies an exception while making sure the Secretary of State's office can still properly regulate charities. In fact, the Secretary of State's office did not like the original wording of the bill, and so we met with them twice, and that office developed language which we have accepted as part of the bill. It is in the form of an amendment, which is not here yet, but we will deliver it to you as soon as it arrives. And the bill is supported by the Maryland Nonprofits Association and the APRA with written testimony. Next, you will hear from the founder of a specific charity affected by this problem, Free Bikes for Kids. And you also have Michael Schlein, the division manager for charities, who is here from the Secretary of State's office to field any questions you may have for him.
Could you state the names of the individuals again?
I'm Ted Cochran.
And who is the other individual?
Michael Schlein is not testifying. He's just here if there are any, he's from the Secretary of State's office. Here if there's any questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Cochran.
Thank you, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and members of the committee. I'm Ted Cochran. I'm president of Free Bikes for Kids Maryland, a nonprofit that helps thousands of children in need ride into a happier, healthier childhood by giving them free bicycles. The public donates gently used bikes, our volunteers refurbish them, and we give them away with new helmets to underserved Maryland children. The need is great, and we're growing as fast as we can, and we're similar to other Maryland nonprofits that collect and redistribute goods such as food, books, computers, and sporting equipment. We're in favor of HB 72 as amended, and we will request one additional amendment. Here's the issue. Free Bikes for Kids follows generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, to improve the communication of financial information to our stakeholders. GAAP now requires, since last year, that the value of non-cash contributions, in our case used bicycles, be added to our revenue. Thus, our revenue will now exceed Maryland's threshold for requiring independent reviews of our finances, even though our cash flow is small. This year, our gross revenue may be about $390,000, of which $335,000 is the value of the bicycles. And under Maryland law, we'll have to do a financial review, and that'll cost us as much as $10,000, even though our cash budget is about $55,000. So HB 72, as amended, excludes property redistributed without charge from the revenue that determines audit thresholds while requiring a number of worthwhile safeguards that we support. However, the language also limits cash contributions to 10% of the total revenue of the nonprofit, which we think is too small because nonprofits that redistribute property require cash to cover costs of refurbishing and distributing the donated property, and may have other costs such as our purchase of new helmets that go out with every bicycle. So we respectfully request that this limit be increased to 25%. Passing HB 72 will help small nonprofits like ours continue to effectively provide valuable services to Maryland residents. We urge you to give this a favorable report, and I thank you for your time and Delegate Watson for sponsoring the bill.
Thank you for testimony, sir. Seeing no questions, I believe that concludes this hearing as well. Colleagues, we have one more hearing of Delegate Bhandari, House Bill 264. And I do believe we will have individuals with the hearing impaired participating, so kind of ease up on the clock. Good. I get that too. It's fine.
We are ready, Mr. Chair. May I go?
Just want to make sure everybody's ready. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and members of the Economic Matters Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Harry Bhandari. I'm here with HB 264, Places of Public Accommodation, Motion Picture Houses Captioning. This bill that passed from this committee and from House, I'm reintroducing this year, would require movie theaters to offer open captioning by displaying the written text of the audio content on the big screen. This way, they can follow the dialogue and sound effect in the real time. In addition, open captioning ensure that they have the same access to the movie-going experience as everyone else, improving their overall enjoyment and engagement with the content. Many of the dozens of testimonials supporting this bill today focus on its impact on deaf and hard of hearing people, a group that has historically been locked out of movie-going entirely. In recent years, some development have made it possible for these folks to attend screenings with closed captions shown on little handheld devices. Still, these have to be proactively requested, can be distracting, out of sync, or plagued with a lot of technical problems. Just take a moment to imagine that you are at the movies and there is no sound. You have to glance back and forth between the action on the screen and a little device in your lap to keep track of what everyone is saying. Does that sound like it's worth the ever higher price of a ticket? Not at all. Let us remember the vulnerable population in our society. Seniors may struggle to hear every word in a movie with intense sound effect Would they prefer to read caption on a small handheld screen? Or parents who want their children to expand their vocabulary and improve their literacy? Age studies have shown that watching movies with caption can positively impact a child's literacy skills. And what about English learners of all ages who are not only trying to comprehend the dialogue, but also the cultural reference and humor that help them improve their communication skills? Open captioning on the biggest screen can make this potential customer feel more welcome and included in the movie-going experience. Mother Teresa once said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love." Offering open captioning in a movie theater is a small step towards creating a more inclusive and accessible experience for everyone, particularly for deaf and hard of hearing individuals who might otherwise be excluded or face difficulties following the audio content. I urge favorable report on this bill. I have a wonderful panel here: Kristen Poston, Roy Fernandez, Sagar Kothari, and Gabriel Davis.
Whoever wishes to present next, please just start with your name, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Kirsten Poston. I'm current president of the Maryland Association of the Deaf, an organization that advocates for deaf, deafblind, hard of hearing, and latent deaf. Really focusing on accessibility and communication issues. We're advocating for the passage of House Bill 264, which is sponsored by Delegate Harry Bandari, Delegate Andre B. Johnson, and Delegate Steve Johnson, regarding movie theater captioning. There are approximately 1.2 million deaf and hard of hearing individuals living in the state of Maryland. The current and closed captioning technology in the movie theaters could be more convenient to use. When the equipment malfunction, we have hassle to take the device back to the front desk, and basically the staff slow to responding. More often than not, this results in missing some of the movies that consumers pay to go see. Even when the equipment works, it is a headache for consumers who are constantly moving their heads up and down from looking at the device to looking at the screen, or adjusting the device in the cup holder. For these bulky captioning glasses with multiple wires that are heavy on the nose and double the weight for consumers who already wear prescription glasses. These broken devices, it is a potential violation of the American with Disabilities Act. Opening captioning on the screen is a better avenue suited for movie enjoyment. Not only is open captioning less prone to failure, this access enables the deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind to maintain their dignity by being able to blend in with the rest of the moviegoers. As a bonus, open caption benefit a wider segment of the public, including children, seniors, and those who lost their hearing later in life, including those learning English as a second language. This is a conception of equal access for all. All of us go to the theater and feel equal to enjoy, and others to enjoy the movie. And the state of Hawaii was the first state to have opening captioning, which indicated that there's no financial impact for the movie theaters. It has no negative impacts. If the cash flow is negative, then we would have more issues. I would like to remind you all that NATO stated during last year's hearing that it doesn't cost a penny to turn on the captioning on the screen. Now it's time for Maryland to lead the national effort in equal access for all in the movie theaters. Movie theaters are one of the more popular social activities within the deaf community. However, with the difficulties of using external captioning devices, you keep having to juggle, and you can't really enjoy the movie. And it's not aligned with the equity and inclusion principles that our state is moving forward to. We look forward to a favorable report. Please support House Bill 264. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Who's the next presenter? Just have them announce their name, please.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Davis. Now, first of all, I would like to apologize. Jacob Leffler would like to actually apologize. He is not able to attend the hearing today because he ended up having a prior commitment and had to be out of state. So I'm here and I'm proud to provide our testimony on behalf of our group. Now, we received many national and local organizations supporting this bill, and also different commissions on disabilities, including those in Prince George's County, Baltimore City, and other organizations support this. So what this shows is that the community wants equal access for all at the movie theaters, at all theaters. I want to thank Chairman Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and the committee for this opportunity to allow us to explain to you why Equal Access Bill is so very important. Now, you will hear examples of how and why captioning benefits all of us, not just the deaf and the hard of hearing citizens in the state of Maryland. And I'm emphasizing all people. There are 4 things that I would like to point out. Captioning also benefits the veterans and those who later on in life, the veterans, have lost their hearing. Captioning also helps those people who come to the United States and Maryland and are learning English. It also helps, and it's a useful tool for adults and children who are learning how to read and write. And lastly, for hearing people who are dealing with noises, background noises in the theater. They're watching the screen and they can't understand what's going on, but thank God the captions are there to be able to follow the dialogue and not miss anything. So that's most helpful for everyone. Having open captioning, no, I would love to see Maryland take the lead in this national effort in order to pass this bill. Let's make Maryland an example of being a wonderful state for everyone and vote in favor of this bill. Thank you all very much for your continued support for this equal access bill.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And who is your next witness?
Sagar.
Good afternoon, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and committee members. My name is Sagar Kothari. I'm proud to be representing our community in this great state of Maryland. Now, please allow me to give you a brief history of the device problems that people are experiencing in the theaters. There's two problems. There's one that are Sony captioned glasses, and there's another device that's called Captiview, which is inserted in a cup holder in your seat in the theater. Let me explain to you first about the Sony glasses. Now, in a movie theater, if I go there and they have the Sony captioned glasses, actually, they both devices have disconnect problems. There's many complaints where consumers who have these devices have to go to the front desk, and that means that they miss part of the movie. They have to go to the front desk, and we're paying the equal price for the movie. And the same is true with the Captiview. So we have to get a replacement. Now, the glasses can cause pain and headaches for people. Sometimes they're too small, sometimes they're too large. It's a one size fits all, but it doesn't fit everyone. People complain and say that they're too heavy on their face, on their eyes. Children can't wear these glasses because they're too large for those children's little faces. Now, with the devices, with the Captiva device that sits in your cup holder, we have to look at this screen that's in front of us and then look at the movie screen back and forth and back and forth. So we're constantly looking up and down, which causes headaches. Sometimes it doesn't fit in the cup holder in the theater. So we have to make adjustments, which then is very noisy for those who can hear, and it's annoying. When we're sitting here and watching a movie in a seat, we have to stay frozen. We cannot move around and just kind of, adjust our seating arrangement to watch the movie on the screen comfortably. We have to constantly be moving around, and we have to adjust the device. Sometimes they disconnect. The captions disappear on these devices. So we have to stop and leave the movie theater, go to the front desk, and ask them for a replacement. And that's in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. It's better for all people to have open captioning on the screen, and that would provide us all with equal access, hearing, deaf, and hard of hearing people. Yes, movie theaters oftentimes replace, they give us a free voucher for another movie, but that's not the solution to the problem. There are other people who are going to experience the same exact problems as we do with these devices. So Friday, January 20th of this year, there was an Academy Award winner, which was Marlee Matlin, and her jury were at the Sundance Film Festival to watch a particular movie. But the closed captioning device did not function. She got up and her group got up and left. We want to be able to go and enjoy movies with our children and our families. And oftentimes there's insufficient numbers of devices. Some members in the group who are deaf and hard of hearing have to give up using it and not enjoy the theater and see the movie. We want open captions so that all people with their families and friends can have fun and have a movie night out. Again, open captioning is for everyone, and it benefits the 1.2 million deaf and hard of hearing individuals in the state of Maryland. Not to mention, Gallaudet University is located in Washington, D.C. They're in our backyard. They can come to our state of Maryland to watch movies. Thank you for listening and for your continued support of this important equal access bill. And I'm asking you all, please support this bill so that we can enjoy the same access to theaters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's your next?
Roy Fernandez.
Hello, Chair Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby. Thank you for allowing me to testify. My name is Roy Fernandez. I am a native of India. I came to the United States in 1980 and found out there were no open captions in the theaters. Most in the United States, and especially in Maryland. Presently, the Sony glasses and the Captiview devices and the window captioning systems are not helpful for those who are foreign-speaking movie viewers. In India, there were many theaters that were offering captioning, and the screenings had open captioning a very long time ago. They do not use captive view or any Sony glasses like that. The open captioning screenings help educate the Indian-speaking viewers who are learning English in India, and since it's a common language and it's widely spoken. And this is what it looks like. This is an example of the view, if you could see that. This is the Indian and English captioning. Majority of India support open captioning screenings. Even there, the Indian-owned movie theaters, the majority of Indians support open captioning screen, even those Indian-owned movie theater in Falls Church, Virginia, providing English subtitles, Indian movies, and a Regal movie theater in Virginia providing English subtitled Indian screenings, not general movie screenings. Secondly, the proven data here at this shows that captions indeed benefit everyone. This captioning technique can improve children's reading skills, boost adolescents' written and spoken vocabulary, increase college students' attention to lectures, and enhance second language learners' pronunciations. Captions are like foreign language subtitles. They translate a spoken language into written language. Captions also translate sound effects, such as raindrops falling, footsteps approaching, horses galloping. Captions transcribe song lyrics and offer other helpful clues, such as identifying conversational partners by their name and indicating off-screen voices with italics. As you can see, the empirical evidence is clear. Captions, also known as same language subtitles, benefit everyone who watches the open captioning movies. The common language in the US is English, so captioning would be a good opportunity for foreign-speaking viewers to learn English. Other countries already have set up open caption subtitled movies. We are in the US and we are behind. I think it's time for a change. Please support this bill, HB 264, to provide equal access and others learn written, spoken, and signed English. I appreciate taking your time to listen to my testimony. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, sir, for your testimony. I believe we have one question from my Vice Chairman, Delegate Crosby.
Delegate Madari, just real quick, I know the bill moved last year. A little bit of history. I think originally it was Dan Cox's bill. It may be slightly different, but I know that surprises people. But we did move it out of the committee last year. I'm just trying to figure out what posture the bill is in. Is it in the same posture we moved it last year or prior to? Did it come in as you originally had it?
So it is in the same posture, whatever the committee offered with the amendment, yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Delegate, do you have other witnesses that wish to testify?
I don't, Mr. Chair.
I see other people. Stephanie Dollamore.
Oh.
You can begin, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Dr. Stephanie Dollamore, and I'm the Director of Policy Initiatives for the Maryland Developmental Disabilities Council. The Council is an independent public policy organization that creates change. The change is possible for people with developmental disabilities to live the lives they want with the support they need. The Council supports HB 264 because captions benefit everyone, as you've heard today. And expanded access to captions will ensure more Marylanders with developmental disabilities enjoy the movies. The council has submitted written testimony for your consideration. We explained that Maryland already requires captions for televisions, and HB 264 expands those requirements to movie theaters. I identify as a person with multiple disabilities, including identifying as hard of hearing. While I prefer to speak for myself, I often rely on captions and ASL to ensure I have full access in different settings. It's good. I'm a proud mother of 3, and my oldest son is named Joseph. I would like to share a story with you about my access at the movie theaters recently. For my son's 4th birthday, my husband and I went to a special screening of a movie called Polar Express. I called the large theater chain in advance to ask if they had closed captioning devices, and they assured me they did. When I arrived, I was provided with a device. However, during the movie, I had to excuse myself from the theater 4 times due to broken devices with delays and errors, low battery, or screen issues. Needless to say, I missed most of the movie. Upon leaving, my son turns to me and asks, "Mommy, what did you think of the movie?" And I had to have an honest response for him, and it broke my heart that his special day was upset because of accessibility issues. HB 264 would make situations like this, for me and other people with developmental or communication disabilities, be a much less frequent occurrence. For all these reasons, the council supports HB 264. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Seeing no questions, that completes the favorables. Now we have 2 moving in the unfavorable, Doug Murdoch and Ellen Valentino. If you guys can dismiss your panel, thank you. Mr. Murdoch and Ms. Valentino.
Thank you, and good afternoon. My name's Ellen Valentino, and I'm here today representing the Mid-Atlantic Theater Owners Association. With me today is Doug Murdoch. From an industry that now more than ever relies on families and customers to come through our doors and have a great time, it is hard for us to sit here in opposition to this bill. How families and people choose to see movies have changed dramatically over the previous 3 years, and our industry is working through some very difficult headwinds. Although we believe there's nothing like seeing a movie on the big screen the best way, things have changed, and now our entertainment, our movies are just a log in a way, almost in every electronic device you can imagine. COVID has also had a profound effect on our industry, and also a profound change in behavior on how people want to receive their entertainment going forward. With respect to COVID and the impact on our industry, we were one of the only industries that were shuttered throughout the state, most of us for over a year. The ones that were allowed to open after 6 months were allowed to open under significant restrictions. So with respect to us coming through this, as an industry committed to bringing our customers back and having everybody enjoy it, we are working to accommodate all. This piece of legislation does only exist in one state, that is the state of Hawaii, and in one municipality, and that's the city of New York City. When this issue comes to us from the advocates, we reach out, and we did to the sponsor, and offer to try to work through an agreement in which our commitment to the advocates can be measurable, and we can assess and try to adjust to meet the needs of all across the state. So I'm going to turn this conversation over to Doug Murdoch, who can talk about the access we have today and the impact this bill would have on our industry. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wilson, Vice Chair Crosby, and members of the committee. I am Doug Murdoch, Executive Director for Mid-Atlantic NATO, a regional affiliate of the National Association of Theater Owners. I am here to talk about House Bill 264. As theater owners, we want to entertain everyone, and our audience is important to us. We need as many folks to attend as possible, and that includes our guests that are deaf and hard of hearing and those who may be learning English as a second language. After many years of work, and as outlined in our written testimony, federal law already requires movie theaters to have personal captioning devices so that anyone desiring closed captioning can go to any movie on any day at any showtime of their choice. In addition to offering this technology, our theaters also have been enhancing access by voluntarily showing movies in open caption where there is an audience or when it has been requested in advance. Unfortunately, the attendance for those open caption shows are low, and many shows have no sales. The difference is that closed captioning on a device is available all the time for just an individual user to see, while open captioning on the movie screen is for the entire audience to see whether they want to see it or not. And may I add, open captioning is not done by a flip of a switch or a press of a button as it would be done in the home environment. It is actually a different copy of the movie with captions embedded. It can't be turned on, it can't be turned off. Ultimately, this legislation's arbitrary one-size-fits-all approach to the number of open caption shows simply would not reflect the audience demand. I have in my outline of testimony the number of screens that would be affected. We think it'll be about 42,000 open caption show times per year, and that's a lot of empty auditoriums. I thank you for allowing me to come today, and I am here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, that concludes this bill hearing and the hearings for today. Just a reminder tonight, the chair wanted me to remind everybody, not that I'm the best at doing this, but there is an event at 7 o'clock, and your attendance would be much appreciated. I'm sure mine as well. But yeah, with that, that concludes today's hearings, and thank you, everybody.
I'm sorry. Here, let me help you. Okay. Okay, I'll help.
I was sitting